Alright everybody, I'm CinematicCritic, and I'm getting ready to return with a review of Ted 2. But before I do that, I want to warm up a little bit. I recently did a review on my other profile of anime, and I didn't do a great job because my camera was not functioning right, and now it is. And so I'm gonna go and I'm gonna do that review again. I'm gonna tell you what animes I'm going to be reviewing and in what order. I'm going to be reviewing Inuyasha the Final Act, Naruto, Rock Lee and his Ninja Pals, which is a spin-off that happens in between Naruto and Naruto Shippuden, which I'll get to later, Bleach, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, the first anime I ever completely watched, Gurren Lagann, Eureka 7, and I'm not saying that wrong, Samurai 7, Samurai Jack, Thundercats, Soul Eater, Space Dandy, Durara, Dead Man Wonderland, Death Note, a very short but very good one, Black Lagoon, Blue Exorcist, and someone where the space kid attracts girls, but I don't remember the name of it. I'm trying to find out, but I haven't been able to yet. Maybe you guys can help me. So we're going to start out with Inuyasha. Now, Inuyasha is... there's something you have to know about anime. And that's... Now, I need to say this. I'm a Christian. But animes sometimes make demons the good guys. Not to say that always. In fact, in this anime that I'm about to review, in Inuyasha, some demons are good, some demons are bad. You just gotta know that certain animes do that. It's fiction. It's still a great thing to watch, and honestly, I don't think it would be the same if it wasn't. Now, in Inuyasha, it's actually very interesting because the main character is actually half demon. I guess his mother was a human, but definitely his father is a demon. We know that much because his brother is a demon, full-fledged. Now, in the series, basically, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit and talk about one of the episodes where they find out, because the series actually begins kind of confusing. Inuyasha is seen being chased by a priestess named Kikyo, and then he's trapped on a tree with like an arrow in, I think it's an arm. It's been a while since I've seen it, but anyway, and then it goes back to the present. It's like, what? So that's why I'm going to tell you what actually happens there right now. So, spoiler alerts in a lot of these. It turns out that that the real bad guy throughout the series, named Naraku, also a half-demon, actually tricked this priestess because it's Inuyasha's intent to use something called the Shikon Jewel Shard. I'm sorry, the Shikon Jewel, to turn himself into a full human so that he can be with the one he loves, Kikyo. Now, unfortunately, Naraku is a shapeshifter, so he shapeshifts into Kikyo and makes Inuyasha think she's going to kill him. Inuyasha runs away. But when Kikyo actually brings the jewel to actually transform into humans, he thinks he's trying to trick her, and he tries to take the jewel from her. And we find out that this was a misunderstanding. And he tries to take the jewel, I should clarify, because it can also be used to make him full demon. Now, that's a lot to grasp, I realize. Especially since that's like the whole setting, and that's not even found out until one of the later episodes. In the first episode, the actual main character, Kagome, is transported back in time to the feudal era where she sees Inuyasha in, like, I don't know if you would say so much a coma, but he's basically not moving. He's up on that tree, and then suddenly, because she has arrived, he can move again, and this whole... it's very quick. He's down from the tree. Makes it very clear that he has the intent to take the Shikon Jewel and transform himself into a full demon, because at that point Kagome doesn't know what actually happened, and honestly, neither does he. Like I said, it's not till later in the episode that he finds out they were actually betrayed by a bad demon named Naraku. a half demon named Naraku. And then the whole series becomes trying to defeat Naraku. Kagome and Inuyasha start falling in love since Kikyo is actually dead. She dies when she binds Inuyasha to that tree. And it's interesting because we do get to see her come back to life as a spirit. We do get to see her as a spirit, I should say, not back to life. And there's one case where she battles Inuyasha, and then that's when Naraku comes in and reveals that he is the reason that they were fighting, and that it really was her intention to transform into a human. And he's like, oh no, big mess up. And after that, he's like devastated. And I don't want to give too much about the series away, other than the fact that there are a whole bunch of admittedly demon characters that we see that are actually really, really cool. Like, you got Shippo, he's like this miniature fox demon. We've got I don't know if it's a demon, the one named Kalala. I don't know if that's actually a demon, but might as well be. And then we've got ones like, Shishomaru, Inuyasha's brother. Inuyasha's father is a full-fledged demon and a very powerful one. He's not alive anymore, but Inuyasha is basically his son. I don't know if he had a human mother or something, but we'll get to that later when we talk about Blue Exorcist. But in any case, Shishomaru is full-fledged demon, and he starts out bad, but in the end, without giving too much away, he's not bad. So I don't want to talk too much about that. I will tell you that in the final act, the story kind of continues, and it does all come to a close, and it is a continuation of the Inuyasha story. And really, without spoiling too much, in fact, I can't go any further without spoiling things, but it really is a great anime to give a look at if you like that sort of things. I know there are probably going to be some people turned off by the fact that the demon is a hero, but it's fiction. So let's talk about Naruto, though. Naruto, my favorite anime by far, and I didn't think I was going to like it. For a while, my favorite anime was Fullmetal Alchemist, and I will say one thing, I always watch dubbed, I do. But Naruto, when I completed Naruto, I watched Naruto Shippuden, and I'll get to that later. Naruto Shippuden is my favorite anime ever. It got to the point where I actually caught up to the English dubs, and I couldn't wait. I skipped ahead. I actually used the English subtitle episodes, so I'm all caught up to the Japanese version. Naruto is that good. So what is the premise of Naruto? It's about this kid who, honestly, I can kind of connect with. He's constantly teased because he has a beast inside of him called the Nine-Tailed Fox. And the Nine-Tailed Fox once attacked the village that he lives in, the village hidden in the leaves. Why? We don't find out until Shippuden. And I'm not going to tell you now. You're going to have to wait for the end when I review that. But anyway, basically, this whole series is about Naruto and how he's not mistreated so much as how he's teased and how he has to grow up with this thing living inside of him. And there are times where you actually see the Nine-Tailed Fox trapped inside of him, where he actually goes inside of himself and talks to the Nine-Tailed Fox. They're far and few. They're seen much more in Naruto Shippuden, among other things. But anyway, in Naruto, you've got that. You've got troubles where he's trying to make friends, where he is put on part of a team, and he does make friends with them. And by the end of Naruto, it's devastating what happens. I don't want to give it away, but I will tell you, something happens, and it's not to do with the Nine-Tailed Fox. That comes in Shippuden. That he basically, I'm going to say it. Spoiler alert. Sasuke is one of the people on his three-man team. You got Sakura, you got Sasuke, and then you got Naruto. Sasuke kind of turns over to the bad side because he goes with Orochimaru, who's the main bad guy in Shippuden, but I'm sorry, the main bad guy in Naruto, but is he really a bad guy? It's kind of confusing, and that's one of the things I like about anime, is because even if you are a bad guy, you've got a motivation to be a bad guy. Even the Ninetales has a motivation given to him in Shippuden, which is really interesting because he didn't have that in the first Naruto series. I know I'm going out of order here, but I think it's best if I just go and talk about Shippuden now. So the second series, Naruto Shippuden, was actually, it's really good. It's still running. This is one of the series that I'm actually still watching right now. And honestly, I've already kind of spoiled it. Still gonna watch the series, but I kind of already know what happens thanks to the manga. But as far as a review for it goes, Shippuden is much better. It takes place 2 years later, when Naruto has grown up a little bit, and there are so many more moments in this series where Naruto is serious. I mean, he's still kind of happy-go-lucky like he was, but the important thing to notice is that in this series, a couple new things happen. For starters, he does start to have people see him as a hero of the village. When he battles Pain, of course, that's when he's actually seen as a hero. The whole, as I mentioned, and now I'm going to tell you his real name, Kurama, aka the Ninetales. Kurama, I just, when I found out that, when I actually got the depth of Kurama and the character, I was like, yes, this is far beyond what I thought it was going to be, and I'm just so happy, and Kurama has become my favorite character ever. It's one of those perfect cases of, again, spoiler alert, bad guy goes good. Like, we find out that he was actually under some mind control, but done by the Madara Uchiha when he attacked the village. Now, granted, that mind control is broken, but he was so mad that he continued to attack. So the point is, it wasn't a pointless attack. He made the wrong decision, but he had a motivation. Which gives him, I hate to say it, but it gives him credibility. Now, obviously, those of you who are up to date with the series, you know that Naruto and Kurama have become friends. You know, they're gonna. Or at least they're partners, they're working together now. And you know how that happens. I'm telling you, Kurama is clearly the best thing. In some way, obviously there are going to be people who disagree with me, but I think Kurama is the best thing that the Shippuden series has going for it. I will say that I liked the arc with Pain, too. Now, the whole Sasuke thing, I got kind of sick of waiting. I will admit the way that they delivered the resolution to the Sasuke issue with his brother, and I like the way that they're using Madara Uchiha as the main real villain here, and I even have to admit that as much as I didn't like Obito at first, I kind of like him now. I'm not liking him in the filler. That's the one thing I don't like about Naruto. Filler. In Naruto, it worked. In the beginning of Shippuden, it worked. But in this big battle in the 4th Great Ninja War that is currently going on, we're in a filler episode right now. I can't take it. Now, I don't know what it is about Shippuden, but it actually gets me to look at anime in a totally different light. It's the one that actually made me, like I said, skip to the subs and watch in Japanese so I didn't have to wait 2 years for it to, come out in English. I couldn't wait. That's how good it was. I saw the Naruto battling Kurama in English. I saw the one where the Eight Tails and Killer Bee were shown to be friends, and the second that episode came along, I knew that that Kurama was going to become friends with Naruto. True, I didn't know his name at the time, but now I do, and now I refused, honestly. For the review, I had to do it, but I refused to call the Nine Tails. I refuse to call Kurama the Nine Tails anymore. He's got a name now. The Nine Tails is what he is, but Kurama is who he is. Honestly, I think that he's used much too little now. Granted, there are more episodes, but if I understand correctly, it's coming up on the end. Come on, really? You couldn't go somewhere else with this? Anyway, there is a much darker aspect to Shippuden. We've got, once more, spoiler alert, we've got the death of Jiraiya Sensei, of course. That was devastating. Right before the big pain battle. We've got, let's see, we've still got, until he comes over to the good side, we've got Sasuke still evil. We've got, the one thing I don't quite get is the return of Orochimaru as a good guy. And while I like bad guys going good, I'm still not totally convinced he's good. Guess I'll just have to keep watching the series to find out. But that's enough about Naruto. Let's move on to Rock Lee and his ninja pals. I'm not going to say much about this other than it's just a spin-off and it's wicked funny. Time-wise, it does take place in between Naruto and Naruto Shippuden, but it's funny. It's really funny. No, like really funny, like it's a comedy. Like, just to give you an idea, I've spoken about Kurama. He's still the Nine Tails in this, but he actually makes an appearance in one episode where Naruto and Rock Lee switch bodies, and Rock Lee talks to the Nine Tails, and the Nine Tails convinces Rock Lee to let him out, and oh, it's so funny. Just the title of the episode, I Dream of Taking the Nine Tails for a Walk, it tells you right there just how ridiculous. Like, they were not, they were trying to make it a total comedy, and they succeeded. Definitely worth a look if you want a comedic anime. There's no seriousness every episode. That's why it's not considered canon to the Naruto universe. And the bad guy in it is Orochimaru, him and Kabuto, but Kabuto's always trying to fix mess-ups that Orochimaru has. And I mean, that never happens in the Naruto anime. And Orochimaru is so serious in the Naruto anime, and in the spin-off, he's not serious at all. I laugh at just thinking about it. So let's talk about Bleach. This is the second series that I ever actually completed watching on my own. Bleach is... well, we're talking about Soul Reapers here. Now, when I watched the start of Bleach, I had actually already seen... I started at episode 183. So I actually watched everything after that. What ended up happening was, well, I completed it. The series ended, and I actually went back to watch the first 182 episodes, and I don't like them. I'm sorry, I don't. The explanation to how he becomes a substitute Soul Reaper, what happens in the first conflicts, I was like, this is how it started? I don't like it at all. You could have literally skipped those first 100 episodes and I would have been happy. You could have just had him, or rather, you could have done the first couple episodes and skipped the whole thing where they want to destroy him because could be a substitute Soul Reaper, blah, blah, blah. Where the whole Soul Society is after him, and then magically, episodes later, they're like, yeah, we're not after you anymore. Why don't you help us? And then, obviously, at the end of the series, he actually becomes a substitute Soul Reaper. And I haven't given you too much. There's a whole bunch of good plots in there. Like, for example, sorry, my computer went to sleep. And ta-da. Oh, okay. There are a lot of good arcs in there. My favorite one by far is the one with Aizen. Although the ones with the Zanpakuto toes coming out was actually pretty good too. The filler arc afterwards with the Zanpakuto toes, not so much. Although it did go for a good laugh. But that's all I'm going to say about Bleach. But it was definitely one of the first majorly popular anime here in America. I mean, honestly, it was the first anime I ever heard of. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. If Bleach was the first I ever heard of, Full Metal Alchemist was the first anime I ever completed in its entirety. I watched it at college, and it's actually how I got in, so I have a soft spot for this, even if Naruto has taken my place, or Naruto Shippuden has taken place as my favorite. Even if Kurama has taken my place as favorite character, I mean, what's not to love about the characters in Full Metal Alchemist? So what's the story? A brother and two brothers have a mother and a father. The father goes away because he works for the government as an alchemist. Now, the mother is sick and she dies. Now, the boys want to bring her back to life, and how do they do this? They do it by transmutation. There is a taboo, and it says it on the opening credits. There is a taboo among alchemists. You cannot bring back human life, because what could equal? Because when you do alchemy, when you get something of equal or greater value must be lost. That is the rule of equivalent exchange. So there is a taboo among alchemists. You cannot do transmutation because what could equal what could equal a human soul? That's like the opening. And it's a very good question. So what does equal the human soul? The answer is pretty much nothing. They think it's going to be this thing called a philosopher's stone, but I'm going to ahead of myself. So how do they bring back the mother? Have you been able to answer that yet? The correct answer is they don't. They try, but what ends up happening is it all goes wrong. They get some monster back. So Ed, the older brother, stops the transmutation, but it's too late. He loses his arm. I'm sorry. His brother, loses his body. And so he actually sacrifices his arm to give his brother a body. But what he actually ends up doing is putting his soul in a suit of armor. And the new quest throughout the series is actually trying to find a way to get his brother his body back. And while they do that at the end of the series, that's not what the series actually becomes about, and it's certainly not about the mother. There are times where they actually run into the father, and that's very unique. Their father is not very happy about what they've done, needless to say, but, I mean, she was already dead, sorry to say it. But this series actually goes to talk about a bigger plot. And by the way, I'm talking about Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, not Fullmetal Alchemist. I do know a little bit about Fullmetal Alchemist. The original Fullmetal Alchemist did not follow the manga's plot. It deviated about halfway through and no one liked it. Everyone loved Brotherhood because it followed the manga's plot. And, it's short, but it's definitely worth checking out. I mean, even the movie is considered canon, I believe. And I loved that. And the movie comes after the series. So don't worry about that. And make sure you see the one, again, that has to do with Brotherhood, not the one that has to do with the original series. I think there were two of those. But anyway, this whole thing just becomes, they've got these things called homunculi. And again, it's kind of like demons, but not quite. And again, some of the homunculi are good, some of them are bad. There's this one really bad one called Pride, and I'm not going to give away who he is, but basically, for the first half of the movie of the series, he does a very good job of hiding himself. Even after the first half, no one knows what his big plan is until the final episodes, and when it is shown, oh my god, it's huge. I won't say what it is, but those of you who've seen this show, you know what it is. And did you see that coming? Because I didn't, and I'm usually pretty good at predicting these sorts of things. So that's Full Metal Alchemist. Gurren Lagann is one I recently saw. I don't love it, but I don't hate it either. So it's about this guy named Simone and his brother. I don't think they're actually brothers, but and they actually go up to the surf, and they live in caves because the surface world has been supposedly taken over by man beasts, and no, really, that's what they're called, man beasts. And they go upstairs, and isn't that what they're called? That's what I remember them as. I remember them as man beasts, basically, because they look like humans, but they kind of look like beasts. It's kind of funky how it all works out. But anyway, one day, one of these things comes crashing through, and it's Gurren Lagann, as they come to call it, and they go up to the surface with this thing. Just Simone and his brother. The rest of his colony actually stays underground because they're scared of what's up there, obviously. But I mean, Simone and his brother, they find another group of people who, kind of funny, and the whole series becomes about them battling these, I forget what they're called, man beasts, in these giant robots, basically. And the one they have is called Gurren Lagann. And honestly, the way that this series ended, I didn't like it. I mean, I'm going to say it's a spoiler alert. They kill off the brother. Now, that's not the ending. They actually added more episodes after the resolution. I'm trying to remember what the guy's name was, but the main villain in the start of the series turns out to be Spiral King. Yes, the Spiral King. The Spiral King actually becomes kind of a good guy later in the series, and he's like, we find out that later in the end of the first part, we find out that the girl he's hanging out, Simone is hanging out with, the girl that Simone has fallen in love with, and later marries, actually is a Spiral herself. And I mean, mind blown, but Spiral King has basically sent her off and even though she's his daughter, because she's not always with him. It's a little confusing sometimes. But in the end series, when she's revealed to, again, it's all the same issues rehashed, basically, in the last couple of episodes. You got the same famous lines like, "This is my drill, I'm going to break through the heavens with it." He saves the girl again, this time with the help of the Spiral King. And honestly, I would say that when you get to the first resolution, stop watching. You're done. That's it. You're fine. Eureka 7 was another one of those ones where the girl in it, the love interest, is actually not totally human. She's not a demon either, but she's got like these fantasy powers. I don't recall this one too much because I watched it a long time ago, but I do recall some things from it. Like the fact that they all surf in the sky. I forget what the machines are called, but they can surf on surfboards. They have a big aircraft that they fly around with. They are seen as the bad guys, but they are actually the good guys. And again, it's complex in that it's just not a great series to get into because of its complexity. That said, it does have some good moments. Honestly, this is one of the cases where, again, like Naruto Shippuden, and this is a shorter series, but when you get to the ending, things get very unique, and the conflict gets very interesting, and that is when the show gets interested. And again, like with the one I previously mentioned, the bad guys aren't exactly the bad guys, and they start becoming good, and it doesn't really work in this aspect. So, I would say take a pass on this one. Samurai 7, another one I don't remember too much about, and one I can't really talk about because, well, I saw the whole thing, but other than bits and pieces, I don't remember it that much. Pretty much says what I have for it. Now, I know there's probably an audience out there for it, but the audience wasn't me. It's basically there are some samurais, and being a samurai, I guess, is illegal except for like one person. They're hunted down. There's one samurai that's like part robot. I mean, come on, really. That's really it in a nutshell. So that's all I'm going to say about Samurai 7. On the other hand, Samurai Jack, well, that was a more interesting one. You've got the demon Aku, and no, this is not a case of demon goes good. The demon is bad. In fact, I don't think he's quite a demon so much as, well, I can't say devil, but anyway, he's a really, really bad person, and the first couple of episodes in the series show that, and there's a guy named Samurai Jack who, I'm sorry, there's a samurai, and we don't know his name the first couple of episodes, and he goes to battle this shapeshifter Aku, who's kind of like a black dragon, if the black dragon was a shadow, really, and it's interesting. A very interesting battle, and it looks like it's going to be over. It looks like he's going to win, but he's actually cast in the future where Aku rules. Literally, rules over the future, and he has to try to find Aku in this future that is ruled by him, and when he first appears there, everyone's like, "What's up, Jack?" And it's all funny, but he actually takes that as his name, thus Samurai Jack. Anyway, the whole series is about how it can get a little boring after a while. Because in every episode, every time he gets close to Aku, every time he fights, Aku runs away. It's not your typical anime in that the bad guy fights. He doesn't. The bad guy fights, but then if he's going to lose, he runs away. He constantly tricks and cheats. There's even one episode where Aku says he'll face the samurai if he doesn't bring his magic sword, and he won't use any of his magic. Does it stay that way? Of course not. And once again, Aku runs away. And, I mean, like, they say there's supposed to be a movie about this. All I can say is the movie better have an epic battle, because none of the battles they have are epic. And so if you're into epic battles, this is not the anime for you. Maybe the movie will be if they have an actual epic battle, but if they do, they're going to have to make up for a lot of disappointment. I was always waiting for something to happen in the Samurai Jack anime. It never did. Thundercats. How do I review this one? Thundercats was basically Thundercats, in my opinion, was canceled too soon. I've said it. Now, granted, it did have some story issues, but I think the story as arc overall actually had something to it. Now, I see where it had its downfall. It definitely had some downfalls. Snarf, for example. I know it definitely wasn't the original Thundercats. I've never seen the original Thundercats. But I honestly thought this take was a great way to... I thought it was great. So when they ended it just like that... there was this constant thing of... bad guys going good, good guys going bad. The conflict the characters had. It drew me in. I wanted to see what happened next. Honestly, it was like something else I saw. I kid you not, I loved Legends of Chima because it was basically what I thought Thundercats could have been if they had kept it running. Putting aside the fact that it's a Lego and a cartoon for kids, I kid you not, Lego Legends of Chima actually had a great storyline. It was actually serious at points. And not too funny. And honestly, I felt like if Cartoon Network had kept Thundercats going, it could have been even better than that. I advise you to check out the couple of Thundercats episodes that were done. And then become one of the people who demands that it continues. Please. Another one that ended too soon is Symbiotic Titan. And they keep saying they're going to bring that back, but they never do. Another one that's not on my list is... Name. It's one where they race around a track and... I can't remember the name. Alright, well, not on my list to review anyway. So moving on, because I don't want to talk about the Thundercats, because every time I think about them, I think about how disappointing it was they ended so early. Especially with the last episodes being so good. 37 minutes of reviewing. Well, I am reviewing several things, and this is a warm-up, basically, for... You may have noticed that in this review, I was doing this, and that's because as Cinematic Critic, I want to be cinematic in my reviews, and that's what I'm going to do with Ted 2. This is all a warm-up for me. It is giving me a chance to talk about the animes that I love, the animes that I've seen but don't love, and it's giving me a chance to rehash the basic story. Just a lot of good practice. You don't have to stay, or you don't have to watch the whole thing. Just make sure you're back in time for Ted 2, because I swear, Cinematic Critic is going to be all new for that. So right now, though, I'm going to keep going and keep practicing with Space Dandy. Now, this was a series that had a lot of potential, but didn't do anything with it. If you've seen Space Dandy, you know it was releasing at the same time the Japanese one was, and you know that they're saying it's over. Are they going to bring it back for another season? I don't know if they can after the last episode. It's basically this guy who's practically a space Elvis, really, and with a kind of a attitude problem. And it's like, there are romances. Do they ever go anywhere? No. They're obviously Space Dandy and the girl who collects rare aliens. That's his job. He's an alien hunter. Brings them in to get registered. In the first episode, he gets this one alien that actually ends up becoming part of the crew, which is kind of a cat alien. It's interesting. It's good for a laugh, but it's kind of like that other one where the space kid attracts all the girls. It's in space, it's an anime, and it's funny. That's really all there is to do about it. At least the one, even that one where the kid attracts the girl, it's really the same thing. He's going throughout space, although he's captain in a ship. In that case, though, there are some bad guys. There's one really neat twist. I'll talk about it real quick. There's one really neat twist in that anime that... There's no twist in Space Dandy, but in that anime, there's one really neat twist that one of the good guys turns out to be a bad guy who wants to be a good guy. and does come over to join the good guy's side after she reveals that she was actually on the bad guy's side. It's a little confusing, I know the way I'm saying it, but it is still a good anime, and it was definitely worth watching. And I'm going to sleep again, aren't I? Should be touching this every couple of minutes. Hate having a long password. Okay, so that's pretty much all I'm going to say about Space Dandy, and I did hit the other one. By the way, if you can figure out what the other one is, it's basically an alien who starts training this kid, and she looks kind of like a cat alien. I know I just said that about Space Dandy, but she looks kind of like a cat alien, like white face and everything, and then she's revealed to actually be the queen of the evil side, and except that, like all the other girls, she's drawn to this main character and falls in love with him. If you can tell me the name, that would be great, because I want to put it on my list of completed anime. Durara. I don't remember much about this one. I remember that there was like a Doulahan, if I hope I'm saying that right. Basically, she has her head chopped off, but I don't remember what exactly her thing is, but she goes around and something to do with dead people, but she also lives with a living human being. She's dressed all in black. She's got like smoke for her head. She can't speak, but she can text. That's how she communicates, by texting by writing on a phone and showing it to the person she's living with. It's actually very interesting. It's worth a look, and if you can get into it, it's actually not all that scary. At least not most episodes. There are certain things in this that I recall where they kind of split into 3 different groups. The main character and his friend, and they're actually in opposite groups at some points. And it's interesting how these groups are divided and how this series just comes to an end. It just ends. I felt like it needed a little more closure. But that's that. Deadman Wonderland is another one that I didn't feel like it had much closure. I felt like it was supposed to go somewhere more. I've heard rumors that there was supposed to be a movie. I don't know. But, it's about this kid who's wrongly accused. Basically, he can use his blood as a weapon. Kind of like Bloodbound in an Avatar. He finds this out later in the series. He's put into a prison called Deadman Wonderland, where you have to literally fight for your food. And then I should say, you got to get people to like you for your food or something like that. Then he's sent downstairs. That'll be the last time. That he's sent downstairs to where he has to fight for his food, all against all these other people like him, kind of. And then there's the whole massive breakout and everything. It's one I don't think I'll watch again, so to speak. But what about Death Note? This is the most recent one that I've actually completed. Death Note it's dark. It's one of the darker animes, and if you're not into that sort of thing, you definitely want to stay away from it. As I said earlier, I'm a Christian, and seeing this kid, the main character, kind of take on the role of God was kind of iffy. He starts with good intentions, but the way that he goes about it, he abuses the power. Now, he starts out using it very correctly, and you wonder, or I shouldn't say that. Let me tell you how he uses the power. People who murder people, he basically has a book. He gets a book, rather, from something called a Shinigami, that he can actually write a name down. And if he can know the person's real name and see the person's face, and he writes the person's name down, 4 minutes later, the person dies of a heart attack. Now, the book also allows him to write how the person will die, as long as it's within 4 minutes. Or no, I'm sorry, that's wrong. if he writes how the person will die, like he could write the person dies tomorrow by being hit by a car, it will happen that way. As long as he's seeing the person's face, it doesn't even have to be in person. He just has to have seen the face, and he has to know the person's name. Now, there could have been some really great things done with this, but the whole series is about them trying to find out who he is. And that's not bad. What's bad is how he shifts his whole focus from killing people who are, well, killers, like people on death row. And I get that there's definitely some... I myself am in the boat where, yeah, you shouldn't be doing that. But at the same time, it's anime, it's fictional, but they went way overboard with this one. When he starts... Now, Light, the main character, is actually a great character in the first part of the series. But I'm going to do some spoilers here. L, great villain. Or, is he the villain? Because that's the thing. Really, there is no good guy, no bad guy in this. Even if Light is the main character, is he good? No. He's killing people. This is one of the first anime I saw where there really wasn't a clear-cut good guy. And L is trying to stop him, so L isn't really the bad guy. Are you rooting for Light? Are you rooting for L? I was rooting for Light, but then the second half of the series came along. Light kind of goes crazy when he kills L, finally, after all that time. It's like, that was you knew that was coming. So it wasn't a great shock. But then you get this new person named Nier. And he comes from the same academy, I guess, that L did. And he's like, I'm not going to fail. I'm going to succeed. And, well, a spoiler, he does succeed. And the only reason he succeeds is because Light goes crazy. Crazy with power, I guess. I mean, the whole world eventually comes to accept that there's this person out there by the name of Kira who can, and that's his cover, who can kill people with just looking at them in a name. So people, and they're like, oh, crime's down, blah, 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 because no one wants to be killed by Kira. But obviously they still want to stop Kira, and that's what Nier does. And just the way it ends, though. I mean, the very ending with the Shinigami writing Light's name down in the book, which means he's going to die. Poetic justice, I guess. But the way it ends before that, the reason that Light dies, the reason how Nier defeats him, I was like, dude, you killed L. You had a master plan through those episodes. You're gonna honestly tell me that you let yourself be fooled by this kid? You really deserve it now, because you let the power go to your head. You didn't think things through. You lost who you were, and in a way, now that I think about it, maybe it is a good thing he died, after all. But that is one of those darker ones. And then I personally would like to believe that they do a summary episode of like the whole series where his Shinigami, and no, I didn't even mention the other Shinigami and the girl that show up. Really, see it for yourself if you want to. But the main Shinigami, well, you can debate me about this, but I think that the Shinigami that approaches Light's Shinigami once Light has been killed, I think that Shinigami is Light. Because we never see him in the series. We only see those two. There's been some debate about whether that's Light, since if you use a Death Note, you can't go to heaven or hell. Interesting. But they never say where, they never say you can't go anywhere. So maybe that's him. Maybe when he dies, he's actually brought to the realm of the Shinigami and becomes one. Gets his own Death Note. That would be really cool if he did. That would also mean that they could have more stories of him as a Shinigami. And the thing is, Shinigami, they can use the Death Note still. It's interesting. Definitely worth a check out if you're into the darker stuff. If you're not into the darker stuff, stay away. Just saying. Black Lagoon is another one of those ones that's kind of dark, but it's got a main character that's kind of like thrown in to the loop. Basically, he's put on. Basically, he's actually sent by his boss at work, and he gets captured, and he's like, "Oh, they're gonna come save me." I'm sorry. He's like, maybe they will, maybe they won't. I don't know. And they hold on, and the people on the boat, who's like, you've got a, excuse my language, but badass girl and two guys who like function as one's all like tech and one's all like machine guns and everything, whereas the girl prefers pistols. It's really like they find out and they feel sorry for him when his company doesn't pay the ransom, so they actually make him part of their crew. The whole series is about him trying to fit in and how he grows into one of the characters like them. And I honestly feel like this series should have been a little more, because like the organization that they're involved in, it kind of loses it as the series goes on. And where did it go? I mean, the main character does throw some balls, for lack of a better description. So, I mean, there's that. But the way it ends is another case of I wish there was more. That's all there is. Blue Exorcist. Now, I know that there's going to be some people who back away at this one, but this is another one of my favorites. Again, Christian, I know, and I know how this one does kind of villainize the church. I don't like that, but the way that the movie is, the way that the anime is presented, you kind of can't look at it that way. You got to look at it as fiction, and if you look at it as total 100% fiction, it's good. The fact is that the main character, Rin, is actually, well, everyone thinks he's a human, but in the first episode, it's revealed that the only person who actually thought he was a human was himself. His father knows. His brother even knows, as he finds out in the second episode. Basically, the secret is, he's the son of the devil. Right, so there are strong Christian undertones in this. I'll get to the church's evil part later. Not my favorite, like I said. In fact, I hesitate to talk about it, but I have to. I have to for the review. But anyway, the whole thing is he doesn't know he's like the son of the devil, and I should clarify that while he's kind of like a half-demon, like Inuyasha, like I mentioned, because he's actually got a human mother. Now, what ends up happening is the devil actually comes and takes the father who's been looking after him, so not his real father, but the one who he sees as his father, and takes him down to hell. You know, great. And reveals to Rin that he's actually his son. And it's, oh no. It's no. It's like, at first I didn't know how this was going to go. But the series, surprisingly, actually makes it work. It does become one of those series where demons are the good guys. Some demons, anyway. Like, there are demons in the series called familiars, which are basically demons that become friends with their masters, so to speak. So yeah, they are technically, they're not slaves, but they do have masters. But it's like a pet. It really is like a pet. I'll get to Kuro in a minute. Kuro, clearly my favorite familiar. I'll get to her as we move on. But in the second episode, when he starts attending this academy to learn how to be a demon slayer, basically, he finds out his brother, who's younger than him, oddly, is actually one of the teachers there. So he knew about this the whole time. And he doesn't even know, he knows that his brother is going to be in his class, but he doesn't recognize it. Not that he doesn't recognize him, he doesn't recognize him as in the fact that he doesn't pay any attention to him. Yeah. he's like this. You got the brother back there saying, hey, our father just died. What do you think of that? Why are you ignoring me? And then finally the guy tells everyone in the class to get out except his brother, and he turns around and tells the brother straight up, I blame you for his death. And I mean, then there's actually a battle between the two of them, and it's kind of fast, but Rin ultimately tells him that it's his plan to kill the devil, basically. Interesting. He says he wants revenge in that he sees the father who took care of him as his father, not the devil as his father, even if biologically he is. However that works. But anyway, the whole series is interesting, and like I mentioned, familiars. Even some of the side characters are really unique. You've got the side character who's kind of mean, but she's also really good at learning what they have to use. So she's actually the first one in the class to get a familiar. In like these two they look like long wisps, and they kind of got like dog faces, and they become her familiars and they become her friends. But when they find out that she's mean to this one girl, they're actually able to use that to turn on her and say, you're not worthy of us. And they start to attack her. Now, in literally the next episode, she calls them back out again to use them again, and they're like, you know we're gonna attack you, right? And she was like, not now. The girl that I don't like, I don't really like her. I don't not like her, and I'm gonna prove it to you right now. I'm gonna use you to save her. And it does turn out ending like that, and after that the familiars become her friends, as they should. There's another familiar named Kuro. Like I said, I was going to mention her. She was apparently the father's familiar. The human father's familiar. And I guess when a familiar dies... Well, I know when a familiar... when a human dies, their familiar is like released or something. And the people on the campus are amazed that she's actually been able to stay tame this long. Like, she stays at her post watching guarding the school. But one day she overhears them mention that her master is dead, and she gets mad and she kind of loses control. But again, we're introduced to another side of Rin, where he is actually able to hear people's demons' thoughts. So that's interesting. And he's able to go up to her and say, "Listen, my father's dead. I know that, but you have to accept it. You have to move on." And he's actually able to convince her that it's okay. So she doesn't go wild like most demons would at that point in time. And of course, she becomes his familiar. There's actually a whole... She must have been a puppy character, because there's actually a whole spin-off movie called Runaway Kuro. Now we come to the part that I really don't want to talk about, but I have to. The church is the bad guy. Okay. Now, before I go any further, they're not really bad guys. It's kind of just like their antagonist. They want to use Rin, because he's half demon, to open up something called the Gehenna Gate, and they think that they can kill the devil. They can bring him out, and obviously it doesn't end up working. It ends up backfiring because the devil gets out. The devil takes control of the brother, actually, Rin's brother, and he's it's revealed that... One second.